Billy Bob Space Trucker. Chapitre 27. Looney note. Some things will be explained. Some won't. It's another chapter. Chapitre 27. The invasion of Bastion was not going well for the crabs. While most of the human ships were engaged in a defense of the Libertonian homeworld, the terrain on Bastion was more than challenging for the crabs who weren't designed for mountain combat. They had the weight of sheer numbers on their sides, however, and many wars are decided by statistics and not people. That wasn't always true, however, and so far the pure tenacity and determination of the humans was proving very difficult for the crabs to overcome. That, and the fact the humans had been waging war for centuries while the crabs got lazy with being able to coerce and intimidate the species around them, also helped. The crabs had settled into the same tactics they'd used at the end of the Regulation War. After finding out the humans had plenty of soldiers with the ability to fly and a preference for aircraft used in close support, they'd begun to coat the plains of the planet with anti-air weapons. By this point, both sides had started to build up emplacements and get their heavier weapons to the front instead of the mass infantry battles of the early days of the invasion. The crabs had adjusted their targeting computers as well. Getting a solid lock on the human soldiers was difficult for them, and traditionally, battles between Crusticans and Libertonians would devolve into hand-to-hand combat, so the inclusion of humans with their ballistic weapons and sniper rifles wasn't something the crabs had planned on. They just tried to fire their weapons all over, to provide some sort of covering fire as they rushed the human emplacements. Their armored crawlers supplemented with heavier guns behind their lines. Americans had favored an emphasis on lightning warfare for generations. So this sudden siege warfare, with heavy emplacements being established on either side, took some adjusting. They lacked the howitzers of old, but the crabs were awful at spotting snipers and recon teams. Not to mention, the humans holding the high ground made the mass charges of the crabs easier to withstand. Not all the Libertonian cities were in the hills and mountains, however. Finchburg was a very important coastal port, providing access to a massive spaceport and the automated fisheries that would help supply food during the siege. The city was situated at the mouth of a large river, just at the base of some foothills. The crabs were unrelenting in their constant assaults, but the humans were holding the city for now. The command center was rocked by another explosion as the crab energy blobs slammed down around their fortifications. A power-suited major was looking at the hollow map in the center of the bunker. The edge of the city was a mass of trenches, foxholes, and bunkers that the humans had hastily built up. The 9th Stormtroopers held the center, while the 52nd Marines held the southern portion, and the 67th held the north. Sniper teams from the 5th Recon were in what was left of the buildings at the edge of the city providing support, mostly by blowing holes in the crab officers with anti-material rifles. As the Major examined the information on the map, there was a red bleep on the south. Tapping it, a frantic comm message broadcast over the speakers. "Matriarch! They've got a fucking matriarch!" The bombardment was clearly an attempt to bog down reinforcements while they made a concentrated push on the south.
Fuck that.
The Major said simply and walked for the bunker's exit. The forward positions were being overrun again as the Marines tried to hold their ground. Lieutenant Jackson was in an MG nest near the back of the trenches, the gunner in front of him laying out as much fire as he could without melting the barrel of the gun. The crabs had advanced with armored crawlers, using them to absorb most of the fire until the infantry could rush forward into the trenches. Shotguns and submachine guns were proving very effective within the trenches themselves, but they'd also moved forward a matriarch. They were walking tanks, massive in size with multiple claws. And this one was also holding two nasty-looking blades to make its close combat potential even deadlier. What made it worse was some sort of new shield they hadn't seen before, strong enough to absorb the incoming bullets as it tore through the Marines at the front. Just before the lieutenant could order his forces to start pulling back, he heard a message over the comm.
Reinforcements inbound.
There was a shriek in the air of jump jets before a figure in black power armor slammed down on one of the crabs, advancing over the trenches, crushing it in a shower of that green gunk they were covered in. Another crab charged the exposed figure, which turned and punched it in the face. The increased strength enough to entirely pulverize the crab's head with one blow. The figure began to walk forward, firing a massive pistol down into the trenches it was walking over. With its free hand, it lobbed a grenade into a forward trench that had been entirely overrun, pulping the crabs inside. The matriarch saw her new opponent and reared back on its legs, bellowing out a challenge which the power suit returned with a single raised finger. The power suit fired that massive hand cannon into the shielded target, noticing the rippling energy that stopped the bullets and simply holstered it, pulling free a knife that was more of a damn short sword. The matriarch charged forward, swinging those blades as the power suit dove to the side, rising up to slash at the claw, holding one of those blades, cutting it free with a single strike. The matriarch howled in pain, turning to swipe with the remaining blade, only to have the power suit jump over the swipe and cut that claw free as well. This had left the power suit dangerously close to the matriarch, however. It lashed out with a pointed leg, jamming it through the power suit's right shoulder, holding it in place as he lashed out with smaller claws. The power suit turned the knife, cutting yet another claw free before the matriarch jammed another leg through the power suit's left thigh. The human inside was entirely pinned now, dropping the knife likely out of pain. The matriarch raised it up, intending to make an example of this one as she pulled the human towards that massive, teeth-filled maw. But the matriarch had made a mistake. The power suit grabbed the top and bottom of the jaw, ignoring the mandibles as it began to pull them open wider. The matriarch shuddered and tried to close its maw around the power suit in a struggle of strength. But humans were dense, heavy, and strong, which was made all the more powerful by that power suit. Soon the matriarch was backing up, trying to pull its legs free of the human to toss it away as its maw was opened wider and wider. Then, with a sickening crack that echoed across the battlefield, the power suit had ripped the matriarch's jaw completely off, letting it drop to the ground as green and purple gunk bled freely from the massive wound. It gurgled and screeched in pain, staggering back as the human took hold of the sharp xeno legs, piercing its body. Then, simply ripped them free of the sockets as the matriarch howled even louder. It sank to the ground as the power suit stood before it, raising a fist as the human leaned in and started punching the giant crab in that thick, armored skull. The cracking of exoskeleton could be heard as the human kept punching and punching, reducing the matriarch's head to mush and pulp. The crabs broke after that, turning and fleeing even as the humans fired after them. The figure in the power suit wasn't done and pulled the hand cannon back out, firing on the crabs as well, while they scurried away for their lives. The Marines rushed forward to retake the lost trenches then, while a corpsman approached the power suit. The figure pulled the legs out of its shoulder and thigh as the lieutenant watched.
Jesus Christ! We need to get you to the field hospital.
Bullshit.
The power-suited figure reached into a pocket, pulling out a tube of industrial adhesive, jamming it into the shoulder first, filling it with the material before doing the same to its thigh.
I already lost that arm in the first contact war, and my leg'll do just fine in the suit.
Christ, who are you?
The figure opened the faceplate to reveal a woman's weathered face, one eye clearly cybernetic.
Shit. I'm Major Mary Sue, badass mother of Billy Bob's space trucker.
What do you mean I've chosen a mate?
Billy Bob asked, looking confused as hell, while Emily stood next to him, wings extended around her. When she looked at him, he leaned back a bit, seeing some sort of emotion in her eyes he didn't understand.
You mean you chose her over me?
Mango note, you kiss that beautiful bird raptor lady and don't you make her cry, you.
What? I never said that!
I've provided you with food and alcohol. My coloring is obviously superior.
Emily, I don't know what's going on here. You're acting crazy.
Crazy. Mango note. Oh nah, that's it, body, you on the list.
She screamed at him and then paused, a change seeming to take hold of her, as her wings folded back and her hands lowered. He could see tears in her eyes then.
You think I'm crazy?
No, wait!
But the damage was done as she began to cry, turning and running back up the stairs. Billy Bob cursed and quickly put the bottle of booze and the plates of food back on the bar as he went running up after her. The door to the room was open, but inside he found the bathroom door locked and some sort of chirping coming from inside.
Emily?
He asked and knocked on the door.
Please come out. We need to talk this over, because I'm really confused.
What is there to talk about? You've made your choice.
Came her obviously pained voice from inside. Billy Bob saw the human agent in the door and looked back at the locked bathroom door.
Emily, don't do anything. I'll be right back.
He quickly moved to the human woman.
What the fuck do I do?
I don't know. You're the one who's been living with her.
Yeah, but I never talked to her about whatever is going on.
Why not?
I don't know. I just assumed someone else would explain it to me when the time was right.
He shrugged, obviously regretting his decision by now.
Well, that was a stupid idea.
Yes, thank you. I got that now.
He growled out with a frown.
Hold on.
The spy murmured and pulled a small earpiece from her ear, handing it to Billy Bob, who quickly set it into his own ear.
This is Billy Bob.
The fuck did you do to the Libertonian?
I don't fucking know! Who is this?
My name's Greg. I'm the senior agent. What's going on? She made some sort of mating display and you turned her down.
I don't know what the fuck is going on.
All right. Well, shit, hold on. Let me open up some files here. Okay. Libertonian mating rituals. Libertonian mating rituals are among some of the most complex and complicated in the known galaxy.
That's fucking fantastic.
Billy Bob muttered.
Unlike most species, Libertonians form unions based around mutual benefit and enjoyment rather than reproduction. This is likely a side effect of their homeworld and evolution. Yada yada yada. Males and females are free to instigate with no cultural bias on gender roles. Blah blah blah. Are you a gender capable of breeding with her?
I'm a fucking human and you know that. I don't think we can breed.
Yeah, but you are male, so her brain might not be processing the fact you're not one of her kind properly.
Oh, Jesus.
Billy Bob groaned out as he tried to think about what that meant.
When a Libertonian female has chosen a significant other she wishes to mate with or form a union with, her body will undergo certain changes which are only triggered at such a time. Many experience fluctuations of hormones unique to this experience, as their body begins to form bonds with the scent, presence, and taste of their chosen significant other.
Well, she can smell me, and I know she's tasted my blood, and not to mention she rubs against me more now.
During this time, boo boo boo. there is a chance for first-time mates to experience a decrease in self-awareness and logic as their mental desire for acceptance becomes even directly related to certain pleasure senses. I guess it's a bit like dopamine. Once she decided she liked you, her body started to change. And because you two have been fighting crabs and nearly dying and all that, it's likely she's been confusing sensations.
So, she's like riding a high when she's been around me lately, and didn't realize she's starting to change because she's associated it with the rush of fighting for her life?
Yeah, I guess so. But that's if she's never done it before.
Christ, Billy Bob muttered and rubbed his face with his hands. So, basically all the hormones started turning her into a teenage girl, and it all sort of cascaded until she couldn't think straight anymore. So when she saw your spy in a bright dress,
It triggered some sort of mating ritual response, yes. She likely didn't notice your lack of a response because her body was filling it in for her. Just being around you made her think you were fully accepting of what was going on. Or maybe she just misread it. I don't know. I'm not a xenobiologist.
Billy Bob let this all sort of wash through his mind as he tried to figure out what to do.
all right, I'll talk to you later.
He said, waving the spy out of the room before closing the door.
Got any advice for me? I just hear her chirping in there.
Ah, that's likely the secretive and ancient Libetonian language that's used only in the company of significant others. No information has been provided for translation implants due to the intimate nature of the language and the general isolation of Libetonians for the last few hundred years.
Billy Bob thought it over and walked to one of the supply crates he'd brought up from the ship. He opened it up and took out one of the steaks they still had, plus a bottle of gin he'd wanted to save until he could find tonic and limes. He walked back to the bathroom door and knocked. "Emily?" he heard chirping as question marks scrolled along the bottom of his vision as the translator implant couldn't process it.
I don't know what you're saying. I'm not Libertonian, remember? But I brought you meat and alcohol.
There was a pause, and then he heard a few more chirps.
I still don't know what you're saying, but I have to say, you had better coloring than anyone I've ever seen. It was vibrant and intense and so amazing it confused me.
He stood on the other side of the door and heard it unlock before she opened it up. He could see the streaks of tears down her cheeks through the downy feathers. He held up the steak and the gin for her to see.
I'm human, so you have to talk in your normal language for me.
She blinked for a moment and then hesitantly spoke up.
You're providing for me?
Yes.
He nodded and she reached out to take them, the claws on her hands sinking into the steak through the packaging as the others scratched the glass bottled as he shuddered from the sound.
I think we need to sit down and talk.
He saw tears well up in her eyes again.
You're going to choose someone else?
No.
He quickly said and stepped back, hands spread.
But we do need to talk.
He motioned towards the seats in the room, and she nodded, slowly moving out of the bathroom and sitting down, holding the steak and the bottle in her lap. Billy Bob took a seat next to her.
Am I your first mate?
What does that have?
She stopped then, and her eyes went wide as she realized why he'd asked that.
Oh shit, she muttered.
Yes,
And all these emotions lately. And feelings. Oh my intelligence god. I've been such an idiot, she exclaimed.
Hey, I'm the idiot here.
No, I totally forgot. With all the training I had about communication and diplomacy and all that. It was from the basis that everyone in the galaxy hated us. I never thought I'd develop feelings for a xeno. So when I started to get all sensitive, I forgot you had no idea why. And And I nearly killed you, so I was focused on holding back, so I didn't harm you with any other normal displays of affection.
She clutched her head with her two free hands.
Ooh, I've been such an idiot.
Hey, don't you take the blame here. I could tell you liked me, but I just figured we'd give it time, 'cause, well, I was terrified after the first time that you'd just kill me if we did anything. And I didn't look into your species at all. I totally should have been more careful about that. And there was something from when I was a kid that sort of, spoiled me on xeno relations.
She looked confused at that and he sighed out.
They showed us these pictures of humans who had been infected with xeno STDs, and it was awful and disgusting, and scared the shit out of me.
But there aren't any known STDs that jump species. And wasn't your species just getting to know the local galaxy when you were young?
Yeah, when you're a teenager, you don't think about stuff like that. Not when you've got Mrs. Munchausen for a teacher.
Well, I really like you, Billy Bob. And I nearly killed you when I first tried to show it. And then you almost died at the museum. And then we spent all this time together. My brain just got all fuzzy, and I thought you just needed more of a clear indication that I wanted you as a mate, which was why you'd been so reluctant.
Well, why didn't you just ask me that?
Why didn't you talk to me about it?
'Cause I generally bullshit my way through life, and I thought I could do the same here.
He shrugged at that.
I'm sorry. It's all my fault.
No. I should have seen the signs. I was going to talk to you about it back when I first tried to show you. But you nearly died, so that's all I was focused on. And when I'm around you, I feel so good and happy. When that human woman showed up and looked all colourful, I've been acting like a child. But you can fight and dance and cook, and you like amazing music. I've never found a more perfect mate.
Emily! I'm a human. I highly doubt we can reproduce.
So,
She looked confused.
for Libertonians, unions are about mutual enjoyment of one another's company. Why is reproduction important?
Well, for human males, there's a certain drive.
He paused and looked up at her.
So you're saying, because I'm not human?
He knew had had to take the plunge here. He'd never thought about it before meeting Emily, but he liked her. She could shotgun a beer like a champ. She was tall and graceful. Hell, she had to be a way better hunter than he'd ever be, and she totally kicked ass in that power suit. Plus, he just liked her. He was all hung up about her being a xeno, but that was selfish. He liked who she was. Fuck what she looked like.
No, Emily. Now that I understand what's going on, I'd like to be your mate. I just didn't know it until you fought that skank in the slutty dress away.
She smiled at him, and he smiled back. Then he stood up, opening his arms as she quickly jumped up and hugged him back. But her gloves were where she'd left them on the floor. So as she hugged him, her talons sank into the flesh on his back, and he gasped out in pain. She heard the noise and stepped back, the talons running along his shoulders as his eyes were wide with agony. When she pulled her hands away and saw the blood, the realization hit her.
Oh no!
He slowly dropped to the ground as he cried in pain, several strips of flesh missing from his back, his shirt and jacket torn easily.
Oh shit! Oh merciful God, I'm sorry! Again, don't move! I'll be back!
She turned, running out the door as the human spy had to jump back.
Don't let him die! I'm going to get biogel! Emily yelled as she ran down the hall.
The agent quickly rushed forwards and saw Billy Bob on the ground, groaning.
Ooh! Why does she have to have such sharp claws?
He gasped out. His life wasn't in danger, but he was in intense pain.
Well, you know what they say. The spy said, unable to hold back a smirk. Love hurts. And so ends another chapter in the adventures of
Billy Bob Space Trucker